Welcome to MTG Friends, I'm Ryan. We are doing a Commander deck tech, and this one is Sevinne the Chronoclasm. This is a Commander 2019 PreCon. I actually had it sitting in my collection uncracked, so I said, hey, let's crack this thing open. I played it a couple times. I'm like, man, this is kind of fun. Let's go ahead and tech this bad boy out. So, as usual, in all of our deck techs, we're going to have different packages, and let's look at them now. And then because this is a PreCon, I left all of the PreCons in the maybe board, and you can of course check out this deck in the link below. It'll have a link to this on Architect. All right, so we have a removal package, a draw package, a severe amount of shenanigans, control. Like I said, we have the maybe board, which is all of the ones we pulled out of the Preconstructed deck. We have the land package, which, you know, frankly, in all of these Precons, the land package is usually pretty subpar, but that's why you get it for a fairly reasonable price. All right, we got the ramp, graveyard play, and a couple tutors. Now, we didn't go bananas with the cost on this. It's relatively reasonable. Sevinne the Chronoclasm PreCon upgrade. As usual, if you're new to the channel, please hit subscribe. Hit that like button either way. All right, moving on. So, what does Sevinne do? Which, if you're watching this video, you probably already know, but let's go through it anyways. All right, Sevinne the Chronoclasm. It's a 2 blue, red, white legendary creature human wizard. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to Sevinne the Chronoclasm. I mean, that's fine and dandy. It's got a little bit of sticking power. Whenever you cast your first instance or sorcery spell from your graveyard each turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So there was like a plethora of that going on in the PreCon, but it was just kind of like some okay spells and some not so okay ones. So we swapped those out and we really had some fun with this. All right, so Architect apparently wants us to deal with removal first. So that's what we'll do, people. Yes, sirree, Bob, Billy Bob, what? All right. All right, Blasphemous Act. Spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. Blasphemous Axe does 13 damage to each creature. Did I just say axe? I'm pretty sure I did. Chaos Warp. This one is great, and this is right out of it, I think. No, actually, maybe not. All right, Chaos Warp. It's 3-drop. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of their library. If it's permanent card, they put it on the battlefield. So this is kind of a Russian roulette because you're hoping that they pull a land or something that's not a permanent, like sorcery instant. But sometimes, and this happened to me in my play group last week, they pull something super gravy-licious for their own board. Yes, gravy-licious. You heard it first here. That's a new saying I'm coining. All right, Cyclonic Rift. If you got it, run it. If you don't, hey, maybe go pick up one because it's awesome. Cyclonic Rift, return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, or you can overload this thing and do it to all opponents, all non-land permanents. Just a super gross card. Yep, we know what it does. All right, this is out of the actual PreCon. I liked it enough that I left it in. Target player returns each commander they control from the battlefield to the command zone. Draw a card. Now, it's mainly for the draw card, but this has an extra bonus because if they're running Voltron or they have Shroud on their commander and it's just really tough to deal with, this is hilarious because it doesn't target the creature, it targets the player. So you can get that thing off the board and slough off whatever is on it in terms of artifact, enchantments, etc., etc. All right, we got a little bit more removal, Lightning Bolt. I mean, boom, 3 damage. Why not? Plus, we can reanimate this thing out of the graveyard in a multitude of ways. And double it up as well, etc., etc. Just remember what Sevinne does. Yes, it does. All right, Ray of Distortion. It's 4-drop. We have a handful of flashback cards, either that was in the PreCon or a few we put in that have higher power. All right, destroy target artifact or enchantment with flashback of 6. Sword to Plowshares. I mean, yeah. Not an auto include, obviously, but strong consideration. Plus, we have a way of teasing this out and doing it again. Exile target creature's control gains life equal to its power. Counterspell, yeah, we're going to run a counterspell. Why not? Dovin's Veto. Oh, we're in control now. Dovin's Veto. This spell can't be countered. Counter target non-creature spell. I like this card because it can't be countered. So those blue players you're playing against in your play group, they counter you. You're like, nope, nope, can't counter tokens. Veto, what? All right, a little bit more control in the form of keeping people away from you. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature they control that's attacking you. Boom, right off the rip, you got some pillow going on. Propaganda, 3-drop, same thing. They got to pay 2. So you got both those out there. They got to pay 4 per creature. Yeah, buddy. Swan Song. I just imagine that's what it sounds like. Yes, maybe, no. Maybe it sounds like speed metal instead of a really ridiculous singing blah, 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 blah. God. Should I leave that in there? I'm assuming there's some kind of music playing as you counter target enchantment, instant, or sorcery spell. Scroll creates a 2/2 bird creature token with flying. I mean, this is just a really good blue removal spell. Moving on. Taigam Oju Tai Master. Maybe that's the right way to say it. 4-drop, 3/4. Just love this thing. Legendary creature, human monk. Instant sorcery and dragon spells. Dragons. I mean, yeah, whatever. Can't be countered by spells or abilities. We are running at least one dragon. One. And it's not the Precon one. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand, if Taigam Oju Tai Master attack this turn, that spell gains rebound. Rebound is super awesome because it's out of your graveyard. Exile spell as it resolves at the beginning of your next upkeep. You may cast that card from exile without paying its mana cost. Boom. Yes. Plays right into the synergy of this commander. Finale of Promise. It is the finale for red. 2 red X. You may cast up to 1 target instant card and or up to 1 target sorcery card from your graveyard, each with converted mana cost X or less without paying this mana cost. And then, of course, if X is 10 or more, copy each of those spells twice. You may choose new targets for the copies. Boom. Boom. Shalaka-laka. I like it. All right, Jace. Prodigy. Draw a card, then discard a card. If there are 5 or more cards in your graveyard, exile Jace, Rin's Prodigy, then return him to the battlefield, transform under his owner's control. Then you get a nice little Jace Planeswalker for your troubles that does, you know, these things that are fun and awesome. Yes, moving on. River Kelpie. It is in the Precon. Whenever River Kelpie or another permanent enters the battlefield from a graveyard, draw a card. Whenever a player casts a spell from a graveyard, draw a card. And it's got persist, which means it comes in after it dies with a -1 counter on it. Very nice. Very nice. Now, notice when this persists back on, you draw a card. That's right. That's right. It's actually kind of fun. All right, Secrets of the Dead. I personally think this is a completely swappable card based off of what it does, but we're leaving it in there because it does work fairly decently. Whenever you cast a spell from a graveyard, draw a card. All right, Seize the Day. This was not in the Precon. Untap target creature. After this main phase, there is an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase with flashback 3. Notice its flashback is less than its main spell cost. Now, this is nice because if we got our commander out, we can do this to 2 creatures instead of 1. And then if we have copying shenanigans going on, we can do it multiple times. Sevinne's Reclamation, also in the Precon. For 3, return target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from a graveyard to the battlefield. If this spell was cast from a graveyard, you may copy the spell and may choose a new target for the copy. Flashback 5. I mean, yes, right in line with the commander. Now, Snapcaster Mage, one of the more spendy ones in this build. Super swappable if need be, but it is great for the graveyard play. It's got flash 2-drop. Whenever Snapcaster Mage enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. Flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. Reason this is nice and so powerful is because Snapcaster costs you just 2, which means you have leftover mana, hopefully, because you're playing this mid-game, late-game, that you can grab something out of the graveyard and just synergize the hell out of your build. Sun Titan, also in the Precon. Whenever Sun Titan enters battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent, and remember that's permanent, not just a creature, but a permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Saw a hilarious thing happen last play group where one of my opponents actually was getting milled, had 2 cards left in their library. They Sun Titaned and then grabbed an artifact. I can't remember which artifact that they dropped onto the battlefield, cracked it, and then returned all of their graveyard back into the library, and then ended up not losing because of it. It was super jank, super hilarious. Anyways, this can be very powerful if you're going to go grab a very specific card, utility card. Torrential Gear Hulk. Boom. Love this thing. It's got flash. Don't forget it has flash, so you can surprise your opponent. 6-drop. When Torrential Gear Hulk enters the battlefield, you may cast target instant card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So this is very, very hilarious. You can do things like grab, I don't know, Cyclonic Rift out of your graveyard and play it without its mana cost. I mean, you can do all sorts of funny things. So it is very, very cool. Love this card. All right. Ooh, looks like it just bounced us past this one. Cliffside Rescuer. Also in the Precon, sacrifice Cliffside Rescuer. Target permanent you control gains protection from each of your opponents until end of turn. So just a nice little protection piece. Gamble. All right, we're in tutors now. Now, I didn't put into Teferi's protection. You certainly could swap this creature out for Teferi's protection. I mean, yeah, easily. Gamble. Search your library for a card. Put that card into your hand. Discard a card at random. Then shuffle your library. Mystical Tutor. The blue tutor. Search your library. Instant sorcery. Put it on top of your library. Crackling Drake. This was part of the Precon. What's nice is you actually draw a card when it hits the battlefield. We're solidly in blue and red, so Crackling Drake's power is equal to the target number of instant and sorcery cards you own in exile and in your graveyard. Part of the Precon, totally swappable if you so desire. Deep Analysis. Target player draws 2 cards, flashback 2, pay 3 life. Alright, still a little bit more draw action. Desperate Ravings. It's 2, draw 2 cards, then discard a card at random, flashback 3. Boom. I mean, yeah. Yep. Echo of Eons. Definitely not in the Precon. Has gone down in price pretty significantly. Each player shuffles their hand and graveyard into their library, then draws 7 cards. Flashback 3. Now, this is a mid-game, late-game if you really need to start filling your hand back up. It is great. It does remove everything out of the graveyard and puts it back in the library, but it's in essence a reset button. It's very nice, very useful utility card. All right, Elsa of the Infinite is in the Precon. I believe it's the first printing. Yes, it is. Prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, or that creature. You may cast the top card of your library if it's a non-creature, non-land card, and you may cast it as though it has flash. I think this is a great card. It's super cheap. It's 40 cents, and it does some cool stuff. It's probably cheap like that because it's cost you 2 colorless and then blue, red, white. So if it was maybe less colors and 1 pip less, I think this would be more expensive. But be it as it may, is that the saying? It's a cheap card. All right, Faithless Looting. Draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. Flashback 3. Melik. Is it Paragon? Another nice cheapo card, maybe because it's a 6-drop, but play with the top card of your library revealed. You may cast instants and sorcery spells from the top of your library. Whenever you cast an instance or sorcery spell from the library, copy it. Boom! Man, you got your commander out, got this, you're doing all sorts of copying shenanigans. You may choose new targets for the copy. Niv Mizzet. Yes, I mean, I'm not saying we're building the whole deck around this card specifically, but boy, is this an include for this kind of a build. Can't be countered. It's got flying whenever you draw a card. Niv Mizzet Parun deals 1 damage to any target. Any target. Whenever a player casts an instance or sorcery spell, you draw a card. I mean, Man, this thing does all sorts of things. Mind you, you got to have 3 blue and 3 red, but the way we have this built, that should not be a problem for you. Una's Grace. Target player draws a card. Retrace. You may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other mana costs. Yes, and that shouldn't be a problem by the time we're doing that. Ponder. Yes, a very nice card. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. You may shuffle your library. Draw a card. Notice it says you may shuffle your library. That means you don't have to, which is very important. Don't forget that part, especially since we're playing out of the graveyard. The Magic Mirror, on the face of it, it's like, no, not a great card. However, in this build, it is. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each instant sorcery in your graveyard. So this should be no problem unless we hit a reset button of some sort. Oh my goodness, I have almost lost the ability to speak. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a knowledge counter on the Magic Mirror. Then draw a card for each knowledge counter on the Magic Mirror. Ugh. Yeah, there you go. Add a Throne of Eldraine. Very nice, very useful utility card for getting that draw action. Think twice. Draw a card for 2, flashback for 3. All right, Vega the Watcher. This is out of Kaldheim, and it's very useful in this kind of a build. Flying whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, draw a card. This does include your commander. Don't forget that. Whirlwind of Thought out of Ikoria. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, draw a card. We should have no problems getting cards drawn and put into our hands. Windfall. This one you could totally swap out if you need. Each player discards their hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. Totally swappable if you so desire. All right, we're going to blast through the land package. Nothing super crazy going on here. The land package in this precon is, well, let's just face it, garbage. And that's okay. You know, almost all precon is garbage in terms of land package. I mean, what do you expect? But this one is actually in it, I believe. Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, I think that's in there too. Fabled Passage, so we can crack it, go grab basic land we need. And then we put in the shock lands that are of relevancy in this build. We got the shock land for blue-white. We put in the pathways to get our colors. That's where you put one or the other. Man, I don't like this version of those lands. I just don't. All right, we're running 7 basics of islands, 4 of mountains. Yeah, I don't know why. If you like those, tell me why you like those. I don't know. Maybe it's the wording on it or something. All right, Mystical Monastery. This gives us our colors and our commander. Mystic Sanctuary. All right, the other pathway, we can drop it as a white or a red. We got some plains. Yep. I'm going to swap that out to boom, shalakalaka. And then we're going to run the triome in the colors of the commander. Really like these triomes. Reliquary Tower, because there's a good chance we're going to have more than 7 cards at the end of our when we do discard. River Glide pathway, that's the blue or the red. All right, we got some more shocky shocks, more shock lands. All right, we're into shenanigans. So I told you we had at least 1 dragon, and it's not the one that was in the precon. We got rid of that one. Balefire Dragon is way more useful than you would ever imagine. It's just a cool include in this deck. It has won me at least 1 game. Whenever Balefire Dragon deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to each creature that player controls. Boom, shalakalaka. Yes, we're not running any like haste mechanics, but this thing is just a beefy dude. And we'll have the mana for it. Clever Impossinator right out of the precon. A great one out of the precon. You may have Clever Impersonator enter the battlefield as a copy of any non-land permanent on the battlefield. And that doesn't mean it's limited to creature. Docent of Perfection. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, put a 1/1 blue human wizard creature token on the battlefield. Then, if you control 3 or more wizards, transfer Docent of Perfection. It becomes a 6/5 shenanigan card, as you can see. All right, Gutter Snipe. This is out of it. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Gutter deals 2 damage to each opponent. Totally swappable card if you so desire. Kaikar Wind Fury in our commander colors. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. And you can sack it for add 1 red if you so desire. It's mostly for those 1/1 flyers, blockers, etc. Murmuring Mystic, nothing super special about this, except that it creates you a 1/1 blue bird illusion creature token with flying every time you cast an instant or sorcery spell. All right, a little bit more shenanigans. Technically, this should be in control, but it is just an extra stank of shenanigans on it. Copy target instant or sorcery spell, then return it to its owner's hand. You may choose new target for the copy. So you can actually target your own spell if you so desire as well, which is why it has that extra stank on it. Primal Amulet, instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast an instance or sorcery spell, put a charge counter on Primal Amulet. Then if there are 4 or more charge counters on it, you may remove those counters and transform it, which flips into tap for mana, and if it's spent on an instant sorcery spell, you can copy it. I mean, pretty snazzy with this commander. All right, new out of Strixhaven. I really, really like this card. Rowan, Scholar of Sparks. So, instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast if you do the 3-drop. +1, Rowan, Scholar of Sparks deals 1 damage to each opponent if you've drawn 3 or more cards this turn, which that might be totally possible depending on what you're doing with your hand. You get an emblem for the -4 whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell. You may pay 2 if you do copy that spell. Now, the flip side of that is Shmekaleka. There you go. Instants and sorcery spells also cost 1 less to cast, and its uptick is up to 1 target creature has base power and toughness 2 until your next turn, so not as cool. But the -3 is draw 2 cards, and its -7 is exile up to 5 target permanents for each permanent exiled this way. Its controller creates a 4/4 blue. So the red, in my opinion, is cooler for just general shenanigans, but if you need to be doing draw, then you drop the Will Scholar of Frost. So that's what we got going on with that one. Moving on. Locust God. Oh my goodness. This one doesn't necessarily synergize fully with our commander, but dude, it's just funny and it's in our colors. It's the Locust God, flying. Whenever you draw a card, create a 1/1 blue and red insect creature token with a flying and haste. And its 4 is draw a card, then discard a card. When the Locust God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next instead. So it's super sticky unless it gets exiled. And you can do the draw mechanics. And don't forget that the red insect creature tokens, the blue and red insects, actually have haste. Don't forget the haste part of that, because that is super, super duper funny when you start getting it go off. 1,000-Year Storm. It's a 6-drop, little spendy for what it does, but it synergizes wonderfully. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it for each other instant and sorcery spell you've cast before it this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. So let's say you lightning bolt this thing and then you start stacking some storm. It's just ridiculous. By the way, side note, we haven't put a bunch of storm in here because the flashback mechanic is a little bit more important. You could certainly swap out a few of these for some storm mechanic cards. Yes, sirree, Bob, Billy Bob, yeah. Now, this one is super funny and gets a huge target on its back the moment you play it. It is a flying vigilance haster out of Strixhaven. I happen to have the promo card, so I was like, how can I shoehorn this into this build? And it turned out it's not shoehorn at all. It's performed beautifully in this build. Whenever it attacks, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value less than or equal to its power from among them without paying its mana cost. Notice it says cast, which is very important. So you actually cast it for nothing. From among them without paying its mana cost, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So yeah, need I say more? It swings with vigilance and haste. It does cost 7, but you know what? This is Commander, folks. You're going to be at 7 before you can blink an eye. Yes, yes. Whenever an opponent casts an instance or source spell, they may pay 2. If they don't, you may copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. And notice the copy part. Yes, it synergizes. And it's just a funny card. Wandering Archaic. And that is it, folks. Sevinne the Chronoclasm. I think you're going to have a super duper amount of fun with this upgrade. Like I said, there's a few you can swap in and out. Thanks for checking us out until the end. Check out our other episodes, and thanks for being a subscriber. Peace out.